My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm not completely sure that I'm going to make it through this video, but I'll do the best that I can. As many of you know, I am a grandparent, and I have not been able to see my grandchildren going on 4 years right now. This happened when the wonderful agency of the state of Texas, Children's Protective Services, from the Department of Family and Protective Services, basically threw me under the bus, let me take the blame for something I didn't do, and as a result of that, I was sued by my daughter, and I was forbidden from ever seeing my grandchildren again. She specifically said that she was going to erase the memory of me from their minds. She sued me, took me to court. My ex-wife got up on the stand, committed perjury, blatant perjury, multiple-time perjury. My daughter's ex-boyfriend, who was an abusive person, also got up there and committed perjury. I couldn't prove his. I didn't have the documentation. I had documentation for the perjury committed by my ex-wife and by my daughter. But as a result, nevertheless, even though the judge found me innocent of everything and realized that this was the activity of some very malicious and vindictive people, I have not been able to see my grandchildren. I have not been able to see my grandchildren for almost 4 years right now. Many people have told me, well, you just need to let them go. You just need to, they'll come back to you when they're older. And they're going to know that you're there. Well, number one, nobody knows that. Number two, these people aren't prophets. And number three, why should we have to have that time destroyed between us, the relationship that we had because of some selfish people? My daughter, prior to this whole thing happening, had me watching the children all the time, up to 5 times a week, over the course of about 8 months, I think it was. I'd watch them, babysat them over 80 times in my house, in their house. They stayed overnight with us. My daughter stayed overnight here. And anyway, thank you, Hank Whitman and Children's Protective Services, for your wonderful destruction of families. Now, I'm not blaming Children's Protective Services and Hank Whitman for the perjury that was done and for the things that happened. But Hank Whitman and the Children's Protective Services and the caseworker, Penny Hutchinson, they all knew ahead of time that I had asked that they could have stopped everything immediately. They could have let my daughter know that I had nothing to do with this report that was made against her. But Hank Whitman chose not to, and Penny Hutchinson chose not to, and Penny's supervisor, Mia, I don't know her last name, she also chose not to. I was told originally this was because it was in the policy of CPS that they are not allowed to do so, which they later said that was not true, so they lied to me to begin with. But then they claimed that that was a best practice. A best practice would be to not exonerate an innocent person. A best practice would be to allow an innocent person to take full credit to take full blame for something that was not their fault. And the best interest of the best practice of the agency would be to see a family destroyed. And that's why I've been fighting against Children's Protective Services. They are abusive. They do destroy families unnecessarily. I'm not the only one. My case is nothing like many cases that I've heard. Hank Whitman will get up there in front of a Senate and he'll testify what a wonderful job this agency is doing because of, you would almost think that they were living in the land of North Korea with Kim Jong-un walking down the street and all of the people in the Democratic Republic of Korea just giving him flowers and praising him and clapping their hands and everything else. And dear leader, beloved leader, what a wonderful person you are. I've watched Hank Whitman give his presentations in person on a couple of occasions. I have been shocked that he gets away with that he can do that with a bold face. Maybe there have been some improvements, but what I do know is this. Hank Whitman made a personal commitment to me on, I believe it was July the 12th, 2016, that I testified in front of him. He shook my hand. He was going to get back to me. It's been over 2 years, 2.5 years almost, and he still has not done so. So as far as I'm concerned, with Hank Whitman talks about integrity and his service and everything else, he's lying to the public. His big deal is to get money to fund the agency. Every time a situation happens, he's like, oh, this is just, bites his lip like Bill Clinton. This is just, somebody fell through the crack. But if you give us some more money, we'll fix it so that it won't happen again. The interesting thing is that last March, when they got more money, they were actually questioned, prior to, they had received more money. Last March, they were testifying about, how this money helped them to pull more children out of homes due to apparent or potential neglect. The majority of children get pulled out of homes, not because they're in any type of imminent danger, but because Children's Protective Services, this wonderful agency, has decided that perhaps there may be some cause of neglect, some cause of either current neglect or possibly future neglect. So basically, every single person in the state of Texas, you can be an object of Children's Protective Services scrutiny, and they can take your children away because somehow in their in their mind, they might think that you could possibly commit some type of apparent neglect. And your children, therefore, need to be pulled from you, and you may need to be re-educated and have Children's Protective Services guardians watching over you as you parent your children, as you may only get to see them once every week or a couple of weeks or whatever it may be for a couple of hours under their supervised visitation. And Hank Whitman needs more than $2 billion to do this. He needs more money. So you can bet next session, I am sure, Hank Whitman will be asking for more money for his agency so that they can destroy more families. Now, that is not what I anticipated talking about. I anticipated talking instead about my grandchildren. My grandchildren I have not seen now for over 3.5 years. Their names are Cruz and Gideon Morgan. I think many people in Texas are familiar with my story. I know that some people throughout the country are familiar with it. And again, thank you, Children's Protective Services, for your wonderful job of destroying the family. We need to rename you and call you Family Destructive Services, not Children's Protective Services. Regardless, again, Children's Protective Services did not get blame. They have plenty of blame for them on their own, but they did not get blame for the perjury and the other damage that happened afterwards. So what I do every year is that I try to do something to let my grandchildren know that I am still their grandfather, that I love them, that I've not given up on them, that I've not abandoned them. My daughter specifically sent me a message that she was going to erase the memory of me from their lives. I don't know why she was doing that, because prior to that, she had said that, Dad, I always want you to be close to Cruz and Gideon, because if you are close to them, I know they're going to turn out okay. She texted me that. It was probably the most treasured text message I had ever received in my life from my daughter. And but again, with this whole thing with Children's Protective Services, once again, Hank Whitman, you take credit for this. Go up there and tell the Senate how you have continually and routinely still allowed this to take place while you go begging for more money. So, to go back to my original intent for making this video, every year I've tried to do something, especially at Christmas time throughout the year. I've been trying to do something so that when my grandchildren, when I do get to see them again and they ask me questions, I'm going to say, Cruz and Gideon, I've loved you so much. And every Christmas and throughout the year, I'm doing things in honor and remembrance of you so that people will know, and that sometime when you grow older, when you get big enough and you look up your name on video, you'll be able to see that you had a grandfather who loved you like crazy, who would not stop doing things in your name, and who's trying to help change laws in the state of Texas and throughout the state. Throughout this state and also throughout other states in the country. But today, something different. In the past, I've given gifts toward for productions, for movie productions, Erasing Families coming out. That's supposed to be done in honor of my grandchildren, Cruz and Gideon memory. I donated a lot of money toward that. I've been helping with conferences, with shared parenting conferences. I've sponsored ads there. At Christmas time, in the past couple of Christmases, I've bought shares that would go for like goats or pigs or some type of animals to people in third world countries that would help them to get their way out of poverty. Today, something different happened. And again, I never expected this reaction. But I was going down to Watermark Church, and I love Watermark Church. Watermark Church is in Dallas, Texas. Wonderful church. I can't say enough good about the church itself. But I was heading down to Watermark Church, and before I went down there, I got on the website, and I saw that they have a project right now going to Compassion International. They committed to sponsor 2,500 children in the country of El Salvador. And they were still a little bit short of that 2,500 figure. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to sponsor a child for a year for my grandchildren, Cruz and Gideon Morgan. And so this is a picture, I don't know if you can see it or not, of Genesis Daniela Rosales Diaz out of El Salvador. And she was born in October 20th, 2014. So she's a little bit over 4 years old right now. What I wanted Cruz and Gideon to know is that I know she's not your sister or anything like that, but she is an adopted sister in a sense. That she will be being sponsored for you, so that you will continue to have an impact on other people. What happened to our relationship was unjust. It was immoral. It was evil and wicked. And yet, I still believe that God will use evil for his purposes. And every year I try to do something so that in spite of the evil, I can take it and use it to bless other people in your name. And Cruz and Gideon, this is an adopted sister of yours right now. Genesis Daniela Rosales Diaz in El Salvador. And I want you to know that the reason she's being sponsored, the reason she's going to have at least the contributions that will be given in your name for her for food and medical and education and church purposes, that you'll know that this was because of you. And just to read to you about her, Cruz and Gideon, Genesis lives with her father and mother. Her father is sometimes employed as a seller in the market. Her mother is regularly employed as a seller in the market. Genesis helps her family by cleaning around home. Genesis' favorite activities are art and drawing and playing with dolls. Genesis may not currently be enrolled in school. Her Christian activities include attending Sunday school and church. Her favorite activity at the Compassion Project is spending time with friends. Please remember Genesis in your prayers. Your love and support will help her receive the assistance she needs to grow and develop. And her community, this is Project ES 811 in Tierra de Coseca Student Center. It's in Colonia Jose Simon Cañas, I think, Zacatoculica, whatever, El Salvador. But Genesis lives in the plains of Colonia Jose Simeon Cañas, home to approximately 3,500 residents. Typical houses are constructed of cement floors, mud walls, and zinc roofs. The regional diet consists of maize, I hope that's right, beans, rice, chicken, and fish. Common health problems in this area include gastrointestinal diseases, respiratory illnesses, and dengue fever. Most adults work as street vendors and earn the equivalent of about $150 per month. This community needs schools, libraries, employment opportunities, vocational training, and drug abuse prevention programs. Your sponsorship, Cruz and Gideon, these gifts, Cruz and Gideon, in your name, allow the staff of Tierra de Coseca Student Center to provide your sponsored child, your adopted little daughter, with Bible classes, medical and dental checkups, nutritious food, hygiene, education, games, birthday celebrations, educational field trips, tutoring, and school supplies. The staff center will also provide meetings for parents or guardians of your adopted little sister. So Compassion in El Salvador began working there in 1977. Currently, more than 30,630 children participate in more than 140 child development centers. Compassion partners with churches to help provide Salvadoran children with the opportunity to rise above their circumstances and become all that God has created them to be. So, Cruz and Gideon, again, this is being done for you in your name. And I hope you pray for her. I'll be praying for her as well as you, and continuing to provide the support for her so that your adopted little sister can, we hope, know Jesus and find her way into a better life that will include escaping poverty and being a blessing to others. Cruz and Gideon, I love you dearly. Miss you. I look forward to the day that we will get to see each other. And I hope that we can say we have helped to change laws in the state of Texas in your name so that other grandchildren don't have to go through this incredible evil and this wickedness that has been foisted upon us, not just through the state of Texas, not just through child protective agencies, but through malicious and vindictive people. And Cruz and Gideon, I also want to say that at the same time, you need to be able to love and forgive your enemies. And there are enemies that have, whether they want to call themselves enemies or not, that have caused these situations to happen in your life. I hope that you embrace them, that you love these people, that you pray for them, but know as well that your grandfather loves you more than you can imagine. Thank you.